Welcome to Picks with the Professor, sponsored by Wager Lab, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I'm your host, the Professor. I've built mathematical models to predict various sports outcomes that I call Sideline. Learn more about the model through the course of this episode. It's set to cover 6 of the 8 second-round NCAA tournament games set to be played on Saturday, March 18th, 2023. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the, well, it's not on the banner, it's usually on the banner. It's www.pickstheprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. See the Google Sheet link in the show description for Sideline projection on every single game. Remember, this show covers picks on the best games for picks on all the games. Saturday here, we've got 4 CBI games. We're going to have 2 NIT games and 2 other NCAA tournament games that we aren't covering on this show. We can't cover everything here. So if you want all the picks, all the A-grade picks, all the numbers that the model says that you need in order to get to an A grade, whether that's money line or spread, check us out on Patreon. We got a lot of different packages there based on what you're looking for. Remember that sports are predictable, so the discussion of this show projects a typical game and does not try to forecast it to a T. That would be a foolish and impossible goal. Take a long-term view on here, no distraction when the team either can't hit or can't miss from 3, as these things balance out in the long run but are hard to foresee before they happen. In other words, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to see it be profitable every single day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, we're recording this here on Friday morning, so we're only halfway through the first round. But, I mean, they call it March Madness for a reason. We kind of saw that on day one. You know, there were some unexpected things. I think Princeton obviously was unexpected. That wasn't really, to me, about the whole three-pointer thing that I'm always talking about. That was just kind of a wonky game. But we saw a lot of weird things with three-pointers. Saw Utah State, one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, never really, get over the hump against Missouri. And they shot like 18% or 14%. I don't know what it was. It was terrible. And that's what we always talk about, right? That Utah State would have been, if they just hit their season average from 3, they win that game by like 6 points or something, probably. They don't even have to have a good game from 3, just an average game. And that's the sort of thing that happens. It happens in the regular season, it happens in the tournament. It's magnified now because all the eyeballs are on it. But that sort of stuff, it happens. It's basketball, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why a tournament kind of thing is a terrible way to decide your best team. Because all of a sudden, one bad shooting night and you're done, even though you were a lot better. I mean, Arizona stumbles and just couldn't figure out how to play, and nobody would agree that Princeton should be the better team.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
One game decides it, so it's just crazy. And I love it.
It's like we talk about, right? And soccer has its lovers and its haters, of course. But the way they decide soccer over in Europe, where it's just whoever has the best regular season record, that's their champion. I mean, that's the way to do it if you want to determine the best team. All of our playoffs are not to determine the best team or for entertainment. It's fun as can be, but you're right. It's not about trying to find the best team. It's about trying to find the team who wins a tournament, which is not quite the same thing. A good team usually wins, but not always the best. Sometimes the best, not always. But it's all for entertainment. It's all fun, and we love it, right? And like you said, it's not about the best because obviously nobody would say that Princeton was better than Arizona. But the other one I thought was really interesting, I just want to touch on real quick, is Colgate, Texas. And we'll talk a little bit about Texas here later in the show, but Colgate, I think, was the best three-point shooting team in the country and didn't shoot the 3 ball at all. They hardly got many good looks from 3, but they also – that was one of the weirdest games I can remember watching. Colgate missed so many like bunnies and layups. Texas looked terrible turning the ball over at times, looked disinterested, but Texas shot like 60% from 3. And so again, it didn't matter. Nothing else mattered. They were going to win that game. And, you can really look at that game 2 ways. You can look at it and say, I'm kind of setting up for later, I guess. You can look at that game and say, if Texas didn't shoot as well from 3, they probably lose to Colgate. If Colgate, it was just not Colgate's night. And if Colgate gets a lucky bounce here and there, have some balls not go kind of rim out, if Texas just doesn't hit all those threes and just an insane shooting performance, Colgate probably wins that game and pulls another 15-2 upset. But on the other hand, Texas got open looks and Colgate didn't. So, I mean, that's part of it, right? So it's really tough to kind of balance that and hold both these thoughts. And sometimes they're kind of contradictory, but, we saw a couple of weird games. Like, to me, that Colgate Texas one was one of the weirder ones of the night. We talk about A&M and Penn State being a weird one. That one was weird, maybe less so from the 3-point part. Part of that was just we talk about Penn State being such a jump shooting team, a 3-point shooting team. If they get hot, they're gonna be really good, and they got hot. And so it's like we just saw all sorts of weird games in weird different ways. It was a great first day. Hopefully today, Friday, hopefully is just as good. Of course, today we're talking about Saturday's games. So by the time you're watching this, you may already know how Friday went. Maybe it went perfectly normal, or maybe it was the craziest day in tournament history. Who knows, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was insane. Like one of the games that was kind of maddening was that Northern Kentucky Houston game. Northern Kentucky just settling for 40-foot jump shots, like, and they lost by 10. Like, you think, hey, make a little bit, but you also got to credit Houston's defense for saying, hey, we're not going to let you closer to the bucket than 40 feet. So, it kind of plays.
Yeah, and but that one too also is a good point. There were a lot of times when it felt like Northern Kentucky was forced to take bad jump shots, but there was a lot of times, especially in that second half, it seemed like Kentucky was like really trying to speed Houston up, and Houston was not having any of it. Houston was slowing it down just like they want to, and that game, of course, cruised to the under like Cousin Jared and I predicted. But Northern Kentucky was trying their darndest, and it's like, but at times they really it seemed like they were like, we're going to go up and get a shot off within 7 seconds. And sometimes it was a terrible shot. Like you said, looking, not that Houston defense allows good shots, but just looking for something better. There was a stretch I remember late in the second half where it seemed like they took like 3 threes in a row where it's like, you could have dribbled a step further and still had a wide open shot. Why did you feel like you had to take it from so far deep? It's the moment and the pressure, and when you're going up against defense, you do different things. So there's a lot of interesting, weird games. That's what makes it so fun. Very unpredictable, and that's why we always say at the beginning, right? We take a long-term view. In the long run, this is the stuff that's going to work out. We're covering some of the games here. Some of the games are left to Patreon just because we don't want to have a show that goes hours and hours when there's a bunch of games. As much as I would love that, I don't think that the viewer would. You might not find time to watch that. So there's picks all over the place. And again, it's a profitable long-term process here on these money line picks. We're going to pick some dogs. Sometimes it's going to work. Eastern Washington earlier in the week being a great example. Sometimes it's not. It just kind of is what it is. And we're not going to be distracted by the chaos as much as we're just going to say in the long run it works out. It worked out with Furman, maybe luckily. But we had just as much bad luck, like I said, with Utah State, for instance, because I don't feel like Furman should have won that game. They played good, but they should have covered, but they shouldn't have won outright.
Oh my gosh, what were you doing, K.A. Clark? Like, I'm just going to be pondering that question for a long time.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because again, in the moment, it's stuff. We all make mistakes in life. It's just that most of us don't make mistakes with millions of people watching, and especially a mistake that's like in the moment. Like I'm just thinking about my personal life, Jake. I'm sure you're in the same boat. How many times have we made a mistake where we've thought about it and we've made a mistake? That's an instinctual thing, right? Those are like the worst kind of mistakes because you like don't have time to process it. And that's tough for him because obviously as it happened, when it was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like before I even saw where the ball was, I was just like, that was a terrible decision. Like you fall on the ball before you do that, right? But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So it made for a fun inning, but you get some good luck and bad luck, I guess, is long story short, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to today's slate, some reminders. Please hit the like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any college basketball, MLB, or college football content. This channel provides MLB right around the corner. So a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. Again, college basketball, we're going to cover during the midweek when the tournament's not happening. We're going to cover the NIT, CBB. We're going to cover all that stuff. So stay tuned. We're going to get a lot of content. If you're not subscribed, again, make sure you're subscribed. That way you get those notifications when we got new stuff out. I've already mentioned Patreon. Check it out if you haven't yet. A lot of great benefits found there above and beyond what we do here. Again, Patreon's always going to be getting something better than what the people here are getting. They're getting the shows earlier. We're recording this on Friday morning. So the Patreon people, you'll be able to watch this before the Friday games even start and be able to jump on earlier lines. They're going to get picks earlier. They're going to get the plays of the day. I mean, always trying to make sure that we take care of our people over there. We got a lot of people over there on Patreon. We love you over there. And if you want to join that community, again, it's one of those, like, you can math it out. It's like 18 cents a day or something, it's a lot of fun. 18 cents a day or whatever it is. It's worth it for the Discord chat. Just all the fun we have over there. So it really is. But again, www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor. All the links to get in the show description. But again, if you're not over there, I'm still thrilled that you're watching us here. Last thing real quick, join us on Wager Lab if you haven't. You can still join us even though the tournament's already started. You can still get in. It's not a bracket. You make bets just like we do on here. It's fake bets. It's free. There's no money exchange in the app. Against the house, against other people, in private pools. Jake, you're doing that with someone on the Discord. You're doing a private pool. You're kind of making bets with each other. It's fake, no money, If y'all want to settle up and pay each other outside the app, that's your business. That ain't my business, but you can do it with friends. You can get a pool going like that. You can join our pool here, bake bets. So it's totally free. You can still join, still make bets over the rest of the tournament, all the basketball games, all the NIT games. You can show your prowess off. And again, top 3 take home a prize. It's free to join. No reason not to hop in there if you haven't yet. So it's still time to do that. Again, all the links there in the show description, again, because there's no money exchange in the app, completely free and legal in all 50 states. So again, make sure to join that pool if you haven't. Reminder, Jake and I have collaborated on these picks. We're going to discuss an area that I think we're both a little bit confused on later today in this one, where it's kind of like the model says one thing and we're kind of like, maybe. So we're talking about this. We're trying to get on the same page with these. And again, also total picks, 1 unit bets. All money line plays are to return 3 units. So on the big dogs, we're going to risk less than 1 unit. On the bigger favorites, we're going to risk more like 2. So again, we're going to proportion that out. That way it kind of keeps us balanced and keeps us in line. Don't want to risk 1 unit on a plus 105 pick and then risk 1 unit on a plus 405 pick. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. We're going to risk a little bit less than the plus 405 because we know it's not as likely to win. That's okay, but we're trying to find value where it is. So again, always, like always, take what you like, leave the rest. That was like the longest intro we've ever had, Jake.
Yeah.
Hopefully people aren't upset about that. 12:10 p.m. Eastern. We're going to start off with Furman, San Diego State. Jake, the powers that be at CBS and Paramount and the NCAA and God, I don't know who was all involved in this decision, have decided that the standalone games, that they wanted Duke, Tennessee so bad that they were willing to make this the standalone early game. I'm a little surprised this isn't Texas, Penn State. I really kind of thought this would be Texas, Penn State. Then the 2:45 game standalone would have been Kansas, Arkansas. Duke, Tennessee apparently is worth it because I'm sorry. I'm interested in this game. I know you're interested in this game. I know our diehard junkie college basketball friends, our diehard tournament friends are interested in this game. I can't see this game being appealing to like the average person. We're talking about here because it's a standalone game. We know that people want to bet the standalone games, but I mean, like, as much as I'm interested in this, I just don't feel like, Uncle Tony down the road, I don't think he's that interested in this game. Do you think Uncle Tony's interested in this game other than the fact that he can bet on it?
No, I mean, the only thing is maybe you get that underdog story, a little time to pump that up with Furman, but that also stinks because you got Princeton later on, and that's a bigger underdog.
Yeah,
I don't know what the decision making process was here, but I mean, I'll be tuned in because I think this will be a fun matchup. But I don't think your office pool guys are sitting there going, let's do this at noon.
Right. So anyway, standalone game here. Of all the games today, there's it's funny when you get to these tournaments because you end up where you're like, you have games where you're like, I picked both those teams. And you have games where you're like, didn't pick either one of those teams, right? Furman, of course, I picked that upset against Virginia. Their style of play just really lends itself to being upset. This Virginia team, not very good. We've seen it. And not that they're not good. They're not top notch like they've been in years past. And so this Furman team was built to take advantage of it. Furman, though, still, I've only got it 70th best in the country. They have a really good offense. And that's where I thought that they could handle Virginia because Virginia's defense just isn't what it was in years past. I think Furman's going to have a lot harder time against San Diego State. I think I mentioned this. I think I pricked this in the bracket. I think I talked about the specific setup in the bracket show where I just said, Furman's got a chance against Virginia, but San Diego State's defense is so good that I don't think Furman's going to be able to score off of them. And San Diego State's offense, their weakness, should be good enough to score off of Furman. So, I mean, San Diego State probably wins. Model says they win by an average of 5.6 points. They win 70% of the time. The issue is I think it's priced pretty well on the side. They're favored by 6. The money line price is minus 240. I don't really think there's a lot of value. I think it's priced really well. San Diego State probably wins. They probably win by 5 or 6, maybe 7, something in that ballpark. So, I mean, I just don't think there's really an angle to attack there. It's priced well. It's hard to go against San Diego State, but you're paying a price if you do, and I'm not sure it's really worth the investment. The under, however, I think is a pretty solid play, under 137.5. Sideline says 137.1, but in the last month, San Diego State has gone under by an average of 14 points per game. This is exactly what I said 2 days ago when I said take the under with San Diego State. It's just don't eat like San Diego State in a game getting near 140 just seems impossible. Like, I'm pretty sure it couldn't happen with Alabama. Like, they just grind these things out. They play fantastic defense. Their offense isn't that good. They should score again because Furman's defense isn't that good. But, Furman's going to, not really going to try to pick up the pace here, just like they didn't really try to against Virginia. They're not going to try to here. Model doesn't love this one, but I really think under is a smart play here for this early game. I think this gets to about 130, and I think that's about as high as we're going to get, maybe low 130s. But just San Diego State's just been such an under team. No one can catch up. The model can't catch up. The books can't catch up. No one can catch up. Let's just keep writing it. I don't really see why we should stop. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, San Diego State defense is well above Virginia's. I think in quality, and then
Yeah.
the way Virginia attacked Furman and like their style of defense played into kind of Furman's hands. They're more willing to let you shoot the three ball because you're farther from the bucket, less chance to make it, and they want to keep you from scoring inside. Where San Diego State is pressure in your face, does not want to let you shoot from anywhere, and that shows because they held opponents under 30% from three. Furman very dependent on the three ball at times. I mean, look, 46% of their shots coming from three, and they barely shoot above average. So they really need that three ball going. They've got the guards to kind of control it a bit. Like if this goes Furman's way, they can control it and get them playing that way. If their guards are on point and they can get San Diego State to make some mistakes because they're going to have to force some turnovers to get them uncomfortable. And you saw that like with Charleston, San Diego State isn't the most disciplined team in the world to keep it to that slow, grinded out pace. If you start moving a little faster, they'll chase a little bit, and Charleston got that going with them. So I like San Diego State to win the game, but it's nothing I'm super comfortable with. But I think. Super comfortable with the price I'm paying right now, but the under is a great play because I just don't see many points coming. San Diego State not the great offense. Furman, I think the defense of San Diego State is really going to take them out of this game.
Yeah, and that San Diego State Charleston game had 120 points in it, and this one might have a little bit more just because Furman's offense is better, but also Furman's going to play at a slower pace than Charleston is. I just I don't understand why we aren't just like blind manually adjusting. Like if I was going to mess with the system, right? If I was going to adjust this number and say what I would just be blind bumping San Diego State totals down, whatever the model says, like 5 points, 7 points, 9 points. I don't know. Pick a number, right? I don't know why the books aren't doing the same thing just because we talk about they played a little bit faster non-conference. So people are like, oh yeah, they're going to score whatever. But like you just throw it out the window. They have not been that team in months now. They have just ground these games to a halt. And like I said, that defense is so good. It's so in your face. It forces every team to take so much longer on the shot clock than they want. What does that lead to? Unders. So again, you never know. Teams might get hot, right? But unders are a pretty strong investment here, I think, in this early game. 2:40 p.m. Eastern, Duke, Tennessee. Jake, your two teams. How you feeling?
Not great. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm going to I don't know what I'm going to do in this game. I'm going to cry or something. I don't know because there's no winning. It's a lose-lose. No way I end up happy.
Right now, Duke is a 3-point favorite. Every analytical system out there in the world says Tennessee should be favored. Every analytical system in the world is not a player-based system. It's looking at team metrics, of course. And we've talked long about Duke and the fact that they've been so injured and they're playing so much better right now. And I think that's real. I don't think that's just fool's gold. I've got a player-based model here. I've got Duke as the slight favorite. The model still says there's an edge on Tennessee. How much of an edge? I think it's really debatable. We obviously saw. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that Duke doesn't win, and I'm not saying that Duke doesn't cover. I would be terrified to bet on Duke because anytime you bet on the team that just looked amazing, and I mean, they were up by like 27 at one point against a really good Oral Roberts team. Now, part of that was part of that was Duke's defense, so good, right? But Oral Roberts didn't score for first 8 minutes. I don't care how good your defense is. Like, I feel like you and I could get out there and score in the first 8 minutes on Duke just by accident, right? Like, maybe not a lot, but we'd score once, right? I mean, maybe not, probably, but whatever. I mean, those guys are much better than us, so that's okay. But when you have a team that looked that good, and you have a team that looked as bad as Tennessee did, and Tennessee had stretches where they looked great, but every time they tried to pull away, they were like, let's go 5 minutes and not score, right? So it's just when you're coming off of a team that looked great and the team looked terrible. If you're backing the team that looked great, you're paying a price for it. You're paying a premium. You're paying a premium for the Duke name. I'm not saying the Duke doesn't win. I'm not saying the Duke doesn't cover. I just don't want to be part of it because I think there's value on Tennessee. Now, is there enough value for me to pull the trigger? I mean, that's a very up in the air question right now. Model says, again, pretty close to a coin toss game, depending on kind of which eye you close, which metrics you want to look at, how you want to view things. So plus 130 on Tennessee. Not the craziest play in the world. I think the really smart play, though, is the under. 128 here just seems way too good to pass up. The model says 122. Both teams have been going under as of late. These Tennessee unders have been really good to us. Duke's offense has been playing really well, but their defense has played outstanding too. Tennessee's defense is going to make this Duke. Tennessee's defense is going to be the best defense that Duke's faced since they've been healthy by far. And that's going to really slow Duke down and prevent them from scoring a lot of points. But Tennessee themselves can prevent themselves from scoring points. And Duke's defense is playing so good, they're going to really hold them down too. This feels like a first to 60 wins. It may even be first to 55 wins. I mean, this might be an ugly game. They might want this game as a standalone game on TV because the name's on the front of the jerseys. But this might be your ugliest game of the day. I mean, it would not surprise me if this was some stupid, ugly, low-scoring type game. I think under's a brilliant play. I'm leaning Tennessee. I'm just not able to pull the trigger on it right now as an official recommendation. The model goes that way for sure. I don't really know. It's hard to really bet against Duke right now. I can't back Duke. It's too big of a price for me. We're always sensitive to value. Like I always say, when I'm going to Taco Bell, you know what? I love tomatoes in my tacos, but I'm not paying 45 cents for a tenth of a tomato. That's just the way it is, right? So we're always looking about value. You can pass on the side. For right now, that's my recommendation, is just focus on under 128 seems way too high. I kind of would be surprised if this game gets to 120. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I feel the same boat. I mean, Tennessee's offense just disappears. I mean, even with Ziegler at full strength, at times they would
we still
just
saw
go
the times,
blank. And, I don't know that Duke's got the squad to really crack that Tennessee defense, because that Tennessee defense is everywhere all the time. I mean, they just held teams to 58, or 55. It's crazy holding teams under 60 in these kind of games, with the pace. And I mean, Auburn, who put up 70 plus, they held to 43. This defense is legit. Kyle Filipowski, Duke's probably best offensive threat, just because how versatile he is. He might not. I don't know. That's debatable with Roach and all that. But I mean, he's not going to be at full strength no matter what. He was throwing up on the sideline and sick for the first game. I don't think a day solves that after the game, especially one where he had to come. He played most of the game, I think. It's just, I don't see the offense's or the pace or anything to get this up close to anywhere near 130. Really, I think 120 is a gift. It's teams would have to, Duke would have to be extremely hot to get this in the 130s or mid 130s, because Tennessee's not going to carry it up there, and Duke's got a very good defense. They are just as tall, just as long, just as athletic as Tennessee can be. They're probably a little bit more talented. Tennessee might have a little more depth than Duke, especially in the big guy area, but those guys aren't offensive threats at all. So it's going to be an interesting game, and I don't think it's tight. I think it's either Tennessee wins by a bunch because Duke is cold, can't score, or Duke wins by a bunch because Tennessee's cold, can't score. I don't.
Kind of either one of those lend themselves to the under, because it's almost one of those, the losing team might end up with 48 points or 52 points or just something really insanely low.
Yeah, just look at the ACC championship with Duke and Virginia, right? You had two really good defenses, two offenses that aren't amazing, and we ended up with barely over 100 points. So, and I think that's a pretty good comparison for a slightly different reason, because Tennessee and Virginia are very different, but I think it's comparable in that Tennessee's got the much better defense, but Virginia plays at the lower pace. So I feel like that's a pretty decent trade-off. I think it's a pretty good comparison there, because it's going to get there. It's going to be kind of different routes to get there, but I think it's the same sort of comparison in that, if you put Virginia's pace with Tennessee's defense, it wouldn't have even got there, right? But I think that's a pretty good comparison there, because Tennessee's not going to slow it down quite like Virginia did, but also Virginia's got a little bit better of an offense and not quite the defense. So yeah, I agree. I mean, this number is probably going to hang up high just because of, again, the books have to have different considerations than we do. They have to consider about, they don't want to end up where they're overly exposed because they make a number and they know everybody's going against them. They don't want to be on an island, that sort of thing. I mean, there's a lot of things they got to consider that we don't have to. And 128 just seems insanely high for this matchup. In like I said, in a game that I find it hard to think. And even if Duke runs away, I guess is what I'm saying. I think the most likely weird scenario is Duke runs away like they did to Oral Roberts. And you saw Duke in that game just kind of give up at times and just kind of not really care. And if that happens again, they're going to stop scoring, and that's going to lead to the under. It just seems again, another really good underplay here to start us off, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a holdover from the Coach K stuff that Shire pulled. In the tournaments, Coach K would always do this. It looks like Shire's going to do it. If you're up 10, 12, 7, 8, 10 right there with 2 or 3 minutes left, he runs this four-corner style offense, takes it to about 10, 12 seconds on the shot clock, runs a high screen and roll, and forces your defense to do something. And when you have a point guard like Jeremy Roach, that works. So Duke up 8. It's with 2 minutes left. I think it's going to be very hard for anybody to score.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the fact that Rick Barnes is involved in this game. So I mean that also makes the under a good play. Moving on to the game that I thought would be featured here in the standalone slot: Arkansas, Kansas. Obviously, I guess winner. The joke, of course, on Twitter, right? The winner has to pronounce their state name like the others, or the loser has to pronounce their state name like the winner does, right? Have some fun thinking about that one in your head. I'm going to go with Kansas here. A-grade pick. Shockingly, the model doesn't really love Kansas that much. So I was really surprised, but A-grade pick on Kansas, giving Kansas a pseudo home court advantage here. I think it'll be mostly Kansas fans in that arena. The location is right for them, of course, being, just across state lines. This Kansas team, I've got up to 8th overall in the country. Arkansas, I've got it 21st. That sets up to be an average Kansas win by 5.7 points. Model says they win 70% of the time, but the correct money line price should be minus 230. And anything better than minus 187 is an A-grade pick on the Jayhawks. Should be a lot of tempo in this one. Both teams want to play fast. Both teams have, good units on the court. The biggest difference is going to be the fact that Kansas, I've got them as a top 10 defense. Arkansas's offense, I've got outside the top 50. And I think that's going to be the difference here, that Arkansas's got some guys that can really slow Kansas offense down. But offensively, I think Arkansas's going to have a hard time really scoring. There will be points because of the tempo, but not because of the lack of defense. The total is 144.5. Model says 144.2. Arkansas has been going over. Their offense has been playing a little bit better. Their defense a little bit worse. But Kansas has been going under. That defense is really coming on strong here as of late. Arkansas can win this game, but I really think it's going to take kind of a Herculean 3-point effort from them. Otherwise, Kansas is just a better team, really in every facet here. And again, the game location, I think, gives them a little bit of an advantage. I think it's going to be mostly Jayhawk fans there. Minus 164, pretty good price on Kansas. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I like this Arkansas team. I think they are very good. I think they're poised to make a run in the tournament if things go the right way. Now, this Kansas team is a hard draw because they are very, very good, very, very talented. The two weaknesses they have, right, are the depth. Plenty of bodies Kansas can throw, but not a lot of talent there. It's just, I don't know. The second thing is Kansas is simple to stop, and it's not easy to do by any stretch of the imagination. But you got to take DeJuan Harris out of the game. However you do that is how you do it, whether you get him in foul trouble or just make his life so very hard that he can't really do it, because he is what drives that offense. Because the second you have to make Jalen Wilson or Grady Dick play on the ball instead of off the ball and run them off screens, they become a lot less effective. Arkansas, I'm just not sure, has the bodies and the talent to do that in this game. They could, but everything's going to have to go right. You're going to have to get a 3-point team that shoots like 30% from three and barely shoots any of them to start hitting them a lot. I think the injuries really killed this team, and like what they had going. They're not a great free throw shooting team, so if it's tight, it's not going to go their way. They also foul a lot, and Kansas really can hit free throws. That leans another way for Kansas, so when it's tight, Kansas goes all the way, I think. So Kansas is a smart player.
Yeah, and it's not, again, not to say that Arkansas can't pull the upset, but I think it goes back to what we were just talking about with Duke, Tennessee. I think people are looking at Arkansas, and they played a pretty good game. Kansas is a much better team, obviously, anyway. I'm not really breaking news there. So Kansas with these short odds, I think, offers some value for us here at minus 164. Going to take the dog here in this one, though. Auburn and Houston, plus 225 on Auburn. Obviously, I mentioned this before, like the model loves Auburn more than it should. I'll admit that. I don't really know why. It was right against Iowa. Part of that also was, again, Iowa just can't be trusted away from Iowa City, right? We've talked about that a lot, that they, 9 times out of 10 away from home just can't hit threes. I don't quite know why. That's very weird, but, it is what it is. And like Cousin Jared said, let's just capitalize on it. We did. Here's the thing with Houston. I love this Houston team. I'm not convinced their two best players are going to suit up. And that's bad news. Houston drops. It's not that the next guys aren't good. They've got a lot of talent. They're still a really good team. But this is priced as if it's Houston full strength, or at least mostly full strength. And I'm not sure. Now, we're recording this again Friday morning, so we don't know a lot. But what we do know is that Sasser re-injured his groin. That's not good. As someone who now I had hamstring issues in high school, not groin. But it's a similar thing in that when I re-injured it, it felt like I got set back about half of the recovery time was wiped out. And we don't know how bad this was, but if it was enough to take him out for a while last night, it makes you concerned that he won't be able to go 2 days later. Maybe he can go next week if they make it, but that's a concern. Also, Sheed now having a knee issue at this point. We haven't got the results back. I believe they're going to do an MRI this morning, but Sampson after the game was very concerned. I don't remember his exact quote, but it was not positive. It was very concerning. Those two guys out for Houston. I'm putting them out right now. I'm putting them at 25% both. And the reason why, I'm not sure either one of them play. I'm not sure if they play. I'm not sure how many minutes they play. And I'm not sure how effective they are. So I'm putting them at 25%. So take that, the model projection with that understanding. Houston full strength, that's a different story. But with those two guys at 25%, I've got this at basically a coin toss game, especially considering it's a basic home game for Auburn here playing in Birmingham, Alabama. So it's just a terrible storm for Houston. I'm not saying that they can't win. I just think it's much closer to a coin toss given the situation. If this game was being played at Reliant Stadium in Houston where the Final Four is going to be, Houston's fully healthy. It's a totally different story. I've got Houston by 6 or 7 or something like that probably. But right now, the fact that Houston's, a 5.5 point favorite is just way too much given I'm just very concerned about the health of this Houston team. I think they come way falling back down to earth. I've still got them as the 6th best team. They're still really, really good, but the 6th best team against an Auburn team that's not bad. And again, playing the home game basically can hang in there. This is an anything can happen type game, in my opinion. A-grade pick here on Auburn at plus 225. Taking a chance on the dog. You want to take the points as well. You want to split your bet, whatever you want to do. That's personal preference. For me, it's kind of a put about 9/10 of a unit to win 2.1. Not going to risk a ton, but worth the investment here. Put a flyer on Auburn just because the injury situation of the game location is really all this boils down to. Total in this game is 131.5. Model says 124. We know Houston wants to slow this down with the injuries. I think they want to slow it down even more. Auburn's defense is better than their offense. I really like the under in this game as well, just because Houston's still got a great defense. Auburn's got a good defense. And like I said, I just think Houston's really going to play this as slow as possible if they're half as injured as I think, because they're not going to want to get up and down with Auburn, given the fact that they're going to be relying on so many bench guys. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, man, the injuries. And it's not like they sat them because out of precaution. That was a tight game all the way throughout. So when they weren't playing, it was because they really couldn't play. I feel so bad for Sampson. I mean, every year he's got the team.
Yeah.
And gets ripped apart, like right either in the NCAA tournament or right next to it, and where you don't have time to adjust and figure things out. This is probably one of the better teams that's not like over the last 4 or 5 years. He's had the better teams that just couldn't get it done because of bad luck.
Yeah. Said some really good teams.
Yeah. And then they really didn't play well against Northern Kentucky. They got out rebounded. They turned the ball over more. They didn't force any turnovers. I mean, I know they forced a lot of threes, but I mean, Northern Kentucky had outshot them about like 12. I think had 12 more shots and not just 3. Like it was just everything went the wrong way. I don't know if I want to see Auburn in basically a home game with the way they can play defense right now if I'm Houston, because you're struggling to find out what you're going to do with those guys. You can't really make a game plan. You don't have a lot of time to scout. Like I know your advanced scout was already looking at Auburn and Iowa, but how much of a game plan does that change when you're missing? Like, I don't know. This is a terrifying spot for Houston. If they make it through and get a week off, they may come back and be back to that championship level, but this is absolutely terrifying. I think there's so much value here on Auburn that it's worth spending a little more than you normally, like a little more than that 0.9. I think Auburn has a really good chance to pull this off.
And while you're talking there, I just went ahead and locked in the under too. I got to make this an official recommendation. We got to go on record with this under. 132 just seems insanely high. Like you talked about the defenses. And, the last thing I already talked about this, so I don't talk about anymore. Last thing I want to ask you here is, you're a Tennessee fan. You've seen some Bruce Pearl. Do you think that he can game plan and get the offense to be a little bit smarter than Northern Kentucky? Because I think that's the difference. Now, part of Northern Kentucky issue is they just don't have the talent, right? Auburn's got more talent. We're really trusting Bruce Pearl, and that's a scary statement, I know. But if we can trust Bruce Pearl to see the game tape of what Northern Kentucky did and say, okay, guys, we got to do the same thing, but we got to get work a little bit harder to get a little bit better of a look, and those looks are going to fall, and we can win this game. Like it's simple. It's really simple. Now, can he get his guys to do that? I guess that's $1 million question. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. And how do you feel about that? How does that resonate with you as a former Bruce Pearl watcher?
Yeah, I've always loved Bruce Pearl. I think he's a great coach. Needs a little more help on the offensive end, but I think he will have these guys motivated and done well. Like, he's not going to let the big, bad, scary Houston defense scare them. Like, I think that got a little bit into Northern Kentucky's hands, the reputation
100%.
of Houston's defense.
100%.
And
I think it snowballed. I think it was we didn't get a good look. We got to get a good look. We got to jack it up or whatever. Like I said, it really was in their heads. You could tell they were not taking good looks. And that's the thing Auburn's got to do. If Auburn does that, though, with Houston this hobbled, Auburn's got a real shot to pull this off, which, again, is crazy to say. But, here we are. And again, with the pace Houston's going to play at, these two defenses, 132 just seems, way too good to pass up. 7:45 p.m. Eastern, Penn State at Texas. Again, we kind of set this one up at the top of the show. Feels like an hour ago at this point. We're talking a lot. We like basketball, talking a lot about them. Set this game up pretty well, though. I'm going to be on Texas here, minus 230. It's a C+ grade pick. It's almost to the B grade threshold. The same thing about Penn State, right? If they hit shots, they're gonna have a chance against anybody. If they don't, they're gonna lose games they shouldn't. And when they're not hitting, they're gonna lose. When they're hitting, they win. It's that simple. The Texas defense, not maybe what it was last year, but their defense is still pretty good. I've got them at top 15 in the country. Their offense, at a top 20 offense, that's going to be where they're going to be able to win this game. Penn State's got a outside the top 100 defense, and that's where A&M early on. I really thought A&M was going to take it to them. They got the ball to Marble down low for little hook shots 3 times in the first media timeout, and he hits all 3 of them. And I thought, man, they're going to have their way with them. But A&M just couldn't hit anything. And that's the difference, is that A&M was going to win this game by slowing down the pace, taking the air out of the ball, playing great defense, getting in Penn State's face, and preventing Penn State from hitting shots. They weren't going to win it on offense. When A&M couldn't play great defense and didn't control the tempo and didn't force Penn State to take bad looks, when Penn State was getting open looks, that game was over. There was no way they were going to do it. Texas, I think, can also do that. I think they've got a real good chance of forcing Penn State to take bad looks. But even if that fails, Texas offense is good enough to score on this Penn State defense. And that's where they'll have a much better chance of winning this game than the Aggies did. Obviously, again, like we talked about, you can look at that Texas Colgate game in a couple different ways. I do not expect Texas to hit 60% from 3 this time, but a lot of that was open looks, and this Penn State defense, I don't think is going to challenge them. This Texas team's playing really well as of late. They went through Kansas twice as of late. At some point, as good as Penn State looked and as good as Penn State's looked as of late, Texas has been just as impressive. So it's not like we're fading the hot team as much as if you pick against one of these teams, you're fading the hot team. So, that's a wash. At this point, Texas is just a much better team. Minus 230 is not that steep of a price. Model says it should be minus 248. Starts with a 1. It's an A-grade pick. I don't think you're going to see a number that starts with a 1, but if you do, that's A-grade. Even if it's lower, 200, that's better. Minus 230, I think, is still pretty acceptable. And much more value on the money than the spread. Spread is 5.5. Model says 6.1. So on the spread, the model doesn't think there's as much advantage as there is just on the money line. If you like a big money line favorite, maybe throw Texas in that as a 2-team parlay. Might be an interesting proposition. Maybe something like with Kansas earlier in the day could be a good look. So again, paying a little bit of a price here, but I think it's a good investment. Total in this game's 140. Model says 139.7. Penn State's been going over because their offense has been pretty good. Texas has been going under because that defense has been playing so impressively well. And that's, again, where I think they've got a chance of stopping Penn State. But even if they don't, like I said, they can at least do what A&M couldn't, and they can score. Their offense is better than A&M's. They score in different ways than A&M, so it's just a completely different matchup for Penn State. So I'm here on the Longhorns. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a Chris Beard design team and everything like that. And Chris Beard is an amazing defensive coach. It's taken a little bit to get this defense back, but now
much longer than I expected. Even before he was gone, the defense wasn't playing that great. Yeah, it was very weird. But yeah, you're right. It took like mid-February maybe, and then it finally started really clicking.
Yeah, and they've got the offensive talent too. So this is what Texas Tech should have wanted. He wanted Texas Tech to look like.
Yeah.
When he had that team. Now he's no longer with Texas, but hey, whatever. We've got a very, very talented, very, very good Texas team that's playing great defense. Penn State, man, they makes me nervous. There's no like real statistical stuff or real logic here, but man, it kind of feels like the Kemba Walker run with Pickett, and that they won all the games they started that run with the Big Ten tournament, and now you've got this run here where they beat somebody they really shouldn't have in Texas A&M, who was everybody agreed was a better team. And now you've run into a Texas squad. I mean, this is it's a little scary there from that standpoint. I don't think they're going to be able to find as many open looks hit as many. I mean, what's his face? Lundy was hitting from half court. Like, what are you going to do?
I think he hit one. I think he hit one from the paint of the March Madness logo in midcourt.
Yeah, it was what do you do at that point? Like, you don't guard people 50 feet from the bucket. But I mean, if that's happening, nobody's getting in Penn State's way. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think that's happening. Texas has got big, strong guards. They got a little bit of depth. They can rebound. And I think the inside part is where Penn State's going to lose this game. I think it'll be tighter than most people expect, but I think Texas wins it.
Yeah, and I think the last thing here I want to say, two things I want to say about this to wrap up. Number one, Penn State, just a high variance team because of them shooting so much. So, no different than Iowa, no different than there's a handful of teams we talk about. It's just really high variance because how much they rely on the jump shot, how much they rely on the three. If you're so inclined, this might be a situation where you play Texas, but you scale back your unit. Maybe instead of having your risk plus win add up to 3, maybe you have it add up to 2, maybe 1.5, because Penn State's just more of an anything can happen team. That doesn't mean I think there's not still value on Texas. I just think the curve's a little flatter than the normal bell curve that you would put when you think about these games coming from a distribution of possible outcomes, because Penn State can kind of swing one direction or the other. The last thing I want to say is that what I saw from Texas against Colgate, I did see a little bit of something that was concerning, and that was just a lack of intensity. They made several bad turnovers. They had several situations. I want to say it was late in the first half where they were not fighting through screens. They were lazily switching, and that allowed Colgate's big guy to be on guards multiple times, and he scored with ease. Later on in the game, they fixed that. Obviously they talked about in the huddle. I said, hey, fight through the screens, and one of the times the guy went right into the screen and fell down, and that, sucked for him. But you need to force them to make great tight screens, or you need to, it's the only reason you switch. Otherwise, you fight through it and you stay on your man because you can't let that mismatch happen. So between the turnover, some of the sloppy play, some of the just lack of fighting through a screen, that's just effort. Again, a loose screen. It was a very loose screen. That's just effort. You could have easily gotten around those if they wanted to. I'm hoping that was a little bit of we're playing a 15 seed and they hit so many threes. They were up by 10 basically from the whistle. And so they never really, they played with a little more intensity when Colgate got it to 8. And then they get it right back up to 15. So I'm hoping that was just a situation. So I'm explaining away all the concerns I saw with Texas. That doesn't mean that those won't pop up. But I mean, it's there in front of them. They know those things. The coach is not a moron. I'm not the only person who saw that, right? And maybe you viewer did. Maybe you didn't watch, so I'm talking about it. But the coach saw that. The coach knows that, right? Terry knows that. And he's got to be talking about that this Penn State team's better. You can't do that. You can't get away with that sort of stuff. So as long as he's communicating that and this Texas team shows up and does all those things, like I said, they're the much better team. And the only way Penn State wins is they get hot from 3. Kind of like they did against A&M. Otherwise, though, this Texas team offers good value at this price. Hopefully they fix those things and they come out with the right intensity. And they aren't, making those simple mistakes. So, I mean, that's just kind of the last thing I want to say about that. Hopefully we don't see that same thing happen here. And Texas minus 230, pretty solid investment. Last game here to talk about 8:40 p.m. Eastern, Northwestern, UCLA. Let's take the dog here with Northwestern. Obviously, Jake, we talked about this Northwestern team. We like them. We went with Boise here. I went with Boise here on the first game. It was a coin toss game, and I kind of stand by that. Boise State, I don't know, 5-6 shots it seemed like in the second half were half down and popped out. And they were just, Boise was tied midway through the second half. And if they had any of those go down, it's a coin toss game, just like we thought. Didn't work out for them. Wasn't their night. That happens. I liked Boise. I like Northwestern. I like both those teams. I like UCLA too. It's the health again, right? Jalen Clark, an amazing player. We know he's out. The other guy, didn't play in the first game. Didn't need him whatsoever. You don't know what that means. Right? Did he not play because they knew they wouldn't need him? Did he not play because it's out of just precaution? Did he not play because he's not ready to go? I don't know the answer to that. No one knows the answer to that, but that's obviously a concern. If he does play, given that it's been now over a week since he's played. Will he be 100%? I'm not really sure. I've got him at 50% in the model because I'm not sure if he plays, and if he does play, I'm just not sure he'll be at 100%. So that's a concern for UCLA. Full strength UCLA is for sure a top 5 team. 100%. No question about it. With the potential injuries, the situation they've got, I've got UCLA down to 19th. I mean, they don't have quite the depth that Houston does. Houston's so good. They've got so much depth. They lose a couple guys. They're susceptible to lose, partially because they're playing a road game. But UCLA drops a whole lot more. They don't have quite the same depth that Houston does. So if both those guys, obviously we know one's out, right? If they're both out, that really matters. Northwestern's got a shot to pull this off. And I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I'm not saying I think Northwestern wins. I'm saying I think Northwestern wins at a greater percentage of time than the odds imply, and thus there's value at plus 310. The model says this price should be minus 176 for UCLA. I still think UCLA wins this game 64% of the time, but as we're always talking about, if we can get a 36% winner at a price like this, it's a great value. We're investing about 3/4 of a unit to win 2 1/4. It's a good chance to take the dog here. They've got a shot with UCLA's injuries, or UCLA may win by 20, and if so, we didn't risk that much. We just took a shot that the injuries would affect them and that Northwestern could get it done. They've obviously got a great defense. They can go toe-to-toe with UCLA's defense in UCLA's defense current form. Healthy UCLA defense, different story, right? But in current UCLA, they can go toe-to-toe with their defense. They're a little bit behind offensively. That's why they shouldn't be favored, but you never know in these games. They're going to slow it down. UCLA is going to be very comfortable playing it slow. We're going to have fewer possessions. That lends itself to be more of an upset game, just like we talked about with Virginia. Higher possession game, less likely to be upset. The team that's better is more likely to win. Not the case here. Northwestern's got a chance to pull this off. If you want to play it safer, I think taking the 8 points makes a lot of sense. Model says UCLA by 4, again, given the current injury situation. So, Jake, my question to you, how much would you be putting on money line versus spread? Would you just go all spread, or would you dabble 50-50? What's your thought on the split between taking 8 points and getting such good odds like plus 310?
I'd probably put 75% of it on the spread just to be a little safer, and then 25 on the money line, because I like UCLA that guy could be healthy. Like, he could be ready to go, and they were just like, hey, we're up 20 points in the first 2 minutes of the game. Just take another night off.
They got up 2 touchdowns to nothing. That was
it was man, that was surprising to me. I didn't think UCLA stood a chance, but I didn't think it was like that.
Agreed.
So you can't really glean anything from that, because they beat them so bad, so thoroughly, so early in the game, that you're like, I don't know. Like, was that UNC actual being bad, or was that like UCLA just being that good? You don't know. And so it makes me nervous. And this Northwestern team can really play defense. They're very, very physical. So the last thing you want to do is come in and play somewhat injured in this very physical game, because, I mean, it takes a really mentally strong person to go, like, I know it's going to hurt when I do this, but I have to do this to win this game. Like, that. I'm not saying the guy's not mentally strong. I just don't know it.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough, right? We're a lot, right? Today's day and age, we're a lot more aware of, mental health, anxiety, these types of things that affect these injuries. And it's real. I mean, it's not like it's just, grit it out and play, because this is these guys' lives, right? And you just don't know with these injuries how they're dealing with it, and the mental aspect of it, and the physical, how it interacts. The fact that for the last week now, he's been waking up thinking about this every day. Like, we just don't know. We have no idea what's going on and how that's affected. There's just so many questions. And some guys, just based off the time of the day of the week, the way their life is, if they're, if your girlfriend just broke up with you, right? Whatever, right? You just don't know. Sometimes these guys, things are fine, and they're like, and they can focus on just gutting it out. And other times, that's not the way life is, right? We all know that we all have seasons of life where things are better, things are worse, and you just never know. Like you said about someone's, I go a little soapbox here, man. We're going to talk for like 3 hours on the show. People talk about mental toughness, right? But I don't think mental toughness is a characteristic that never changes. I think we all have times where we're more mentally tough and less mentally tough, and that just ebbs and flows with the season of life you're in. So that's the other thing too. Is this? I think this old school mentality was like, oh, you have it or you don't, and I don't think that's accurate. I think it's ups and downs, and some people might have a little bit higher of a tide. But yeah, we just never know how this is going to play out. It's a complete crapshoot. Like you said, we have no idea if he's going to be able to go, how he's going to be able to look, any of those things. And with usually his lack of depth, that really matters if he's not out there, because Northwestern's a whole lot better than UNC Asheville. We know that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's very physical. I mean, we don't know what the Marcus Shaver injury did to Boise there halfway through the game, how that
Yeah.
changed things. So that
And
kind of
then
broke
he came
Northwestern's
back, but
way.
again, we don't know it. We don't know it what percent, right?
Yeah, and so like I don't know. Northwestern's offense scares me, and that's why I'm doing it 75 on the spread, 25. Like, because I just don't trust them to find open shots and make them. But they don't turn the ball over, so it's not like they're giving UCLA extra chances anywhere. And they rebound the ball pretty well. I just don't know that they're going to make the shots. We're going to need some. They're going to like to win this game. You're going to have some help from the refs, get them to the line because they're a very good free throw shooting team. They just got to get there a little more.
Or that's the game plan, especially if UCLA, right, a little bit,
Yeah.
More injured, not a lot of depth. The game plan could be we're just going to attack and try to draw fouls, and we don't even care if we make the shots. We're just going to try to get people in foul trouble, right?
It's a very smart, especially Hawkes, because I don't think they can replace Hawkes anywhere. I mean, not that there's another guy like him, but I don't think you can get 80% of his value to this UCLA team right now at their level. So if you can get him going, then and you've got Boo Buie, who is a very good guard, who I would trust with like on my team with the ball in his hands, at the end of the game. So having that helps. I think this is a tight game, so I think the spread makes a lot of sense. Maybe we double up. Maybe we get the money line win too.
Yeah, and the other thing here, I love this under. So we're going to play the under 127.5 as well. The model says 121. The pace will be slow. Both these defenses are good. Like you said, we don't really trust Northwestern's offense to do much, but thankfully they don't turn it over. You don't turn it over, that means you're not going to be giving up quick looks. UCLA's going to be forcing the half-court offense. Northwestern's defense is really good and suffocating, and they're going to be able to slow UCLA down. UCLA doesn't want to play fast anyway. They're going to be very comfortable playing this at a slow game. This is a game where I really think first to 60 wins, and I think 120 is a whole lot more likely than 127.5. So another good under pick for you here that I'm going to officially go on record with. Jake, how much do you like the under versus the +8? Which one do you like more? Putting you on the spot here. We didn't even talk about it. We collaborate. I'm just throwing this at you now.
Probably the under, because Northwestern's offense really depends on forcing turnovers, and UCLA's not sloppy. Tiger Campbell has been a very good point guard for what feels like forever now. I think his hair has tripled in size since we've started watching.
I love it. We need a timeline.
So I'd probably lean the under.
Okay. So you like the under more. So again, a grade pick on Northwestern. You want to split a little bit the spread. That makes a lot of sense. You want to go with the money line. That makes a little bit of sense. Again, we're scaling back that wager on the money line because it's not that we think Northwestern wins. It's just we think there's value with this price. Again, we're going to be doing the same thing with baseball, which was wildly profitable last year. Should be the same thing here in a couple weeks with that. Under 127.5, great investment as well. Low pace, great defenses. Even UCLA's offense is outside the top 50 now, not at full strength. So Northwestern's defense is going to have the edge. So again, a lot of defense, no pace. Under makes a lot of sense. They're going to play a little first half under. That also makes a little bit of sense here too. That way you take away the maybe weirdness at the end of the game, overtime, something like that. We haven't seen any overtimes on Thursday. Maybe we'll see some here on Friday, but that's kind of the benefit. Sometimes that first half under, you're paying a premium for it, but at least you avoid the potential overtime, which there are going to be some coming. We're not going to have a whole tournament without overtime. You just don't know where it's going to strike.
An extra 5 minutes, it can be a killer.
Absolutely. All right, that's all we got for you then today, Jake. I know we talked a lot, but do you have any more parting words for the viewer?
No, I think I'm all out.
Yeah, I think I am too. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can ensure all the sports betting content provided on this channel is up right into your feed. Be back again in 24 hours to cover the Sunday games. We're covering all the postseason action here in college basketball this March. But until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can get your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.